In this video, I'll show you 4 essential composition secrets, and it's in my book, Ellen's Guide to Design Elements, that's only $5. When you have 3 areas of interest, they form a triangle, and they should be spaced relatively close together so that the eye can easily travel from one to the other. This placement isn't as good because the areas are further apart from each other, and one is in the corner. And so we immediately look at this one in the corner, and we generally want to keep viewers away from the corner for fear that they may leave our painting. So I violated the rule here, and I put a strong value and color contrast in the corner. Does that ruin the picture? Well, it doesn't as long as I can convince the viewer to look at the rest of the painting. And in fact, having the rose with the black background like this seems to freeze that rose. And I think it's a good counter to all the movement in the rest of the painting. But I'll let you decide whether it works or not. Let's compare these 2 versions of the same picture. I think you would agree that this one is good, but this one is a much better composition. And why is that? Well, in the first one, it's unclear what the focus is. It could be the soda because it's on a platter. It could be this green plant in the distance. It's unclear which one we should look at, so we go bouncing around from one to the other. However, when I crop the picture here, then the soda becomes the focus and the other subjects are subordinate to it. So when you have a dominant focus, the painting becomes unified because all the other elements are dependent on the focus. This is not unified because it has 3 separate subjects that don't necessarily interrelate. The third secret is that we need to link areas together. So 3 spots form a triangle and a plane. And when we have more than 3 spots, we connect them with lines, not curves. And when we have spots that differ in one property, like color, then we link similar colors together. Now, with spots that vary in more than one property, like this one, we link spots according to the dominant property. So here, the squares are about the same size as the spots, so the shapes aren't as important as the color. And as a result, we group colors together. We group the pink ones together and the blue ones together. Now, this situation is a little more complicated. We have spots that are black and white, we have boxes and circles, and we have differences in sizes. So there are 3 different properties. And we could link the white box, for example, with the white circle because white stands out over the black. Then the black spots form a triangle. Alternatively, we could link the big box with the little box. The point is that I've already spent some time discussing this more complex situation than I did with this one. So this becomes more interesting and also more realistic because the world isn't divided into pink and blue. So let's look for similarities in my London picture. And we'll just choose the orange things, the trees, the buses, and the person who's right there. So what are the moving things? Well, the buses and the person are the moving things. Which ones are alive? The trees and the person are alive. Which one shows perspective? The trees and the buses, because there are more than one of them. And which one has both orange and blue? Well, that would be the person, and that is the focus. So you can see that there's a lot of crossover between these different elements in the picture. Why am I stressing similarities? Well, let's look at the opposite extreme. Here I put together 3 elements that have nothing in common with each other: the shoe, the design, and the earth. Is this good art? Well, what's the message other than chaos? And what emotion does it evoke other than, ugh? No subject is dominant, so there's no unity. and it's not even particularly nice to look at or interesting. So having completely separate and dissimilar subjects isn't good art. I broke down this picture into its main shapes. And when you do that, you can see the design and whether there are flaws. So we look at the face first because it's the most interesting. Then we look at the hand, and then we look at the violin. Now let's see whether we can change it. I would put the hand over the violin if I want to show depth. But for a more dynamic picture, the hand should be moved down away from the violin, emphasizing their diagonal displacement. This picture, for example, is more dynamic, partly due to the large triangle formed by this woman's hand and the cello. Now, also in this first picture, I would have him look at the violin, since that creates a strong directional force like this. So by breaking it down into its components, we can see the design and we can see how we can change it. So in this video, I illustrated 4 compositional tips. The first one is to place subjects relatively near each other and not at the corners, although I violated that rule with this painting. The picture should have a focus or dominant area like this soda, although you could have pictures with what's called an all-over pattern, which doesn't have a focus. But for the most part, pictures should have a focus or dominant area because that unites the picture. Now, third, there should be similar properties that link the different areas together. But I'm going to go even further and say that there should be overlapping similarities. In other words, you don't want 2 groups that are completely separate from each other, like a red shiny boxes and blue soft blobs. You might as well have 2 different pictures. And we described all the overlapping with this picture. And we also discussed how having a picture with totally dissimilar elements isn't art. So check out my book on Amazon, which has more information than I can provide here. And please remember to subscribe.